Do hobbits have the most advanced society of all races in Middle-earth? Now, when you think of hobbits, you might picture cozy homes, lots of food, and quiet, peaceful living. But what if I told you their society is actually more forward-thinking than you might expect? Let's dive in and break it down. First, let's talk about leadership. When most people think of powerful rulers in Middle-earth, they probably think of elves, dwarves, men, kings, queens, monarchs ruling with centuries-old bloodlines. But hobbits appear to have a more democratic system than all of them. In Hobbit society, the mayor of the Shire isn't some monarch or hereditary ruler. The mayor is elected by the people of the Shire. Every 7 years, hobbits vote to choose their leader. And while the mayor's role might seem ceremonial, this election system is a huge contrast to the dynastic monarchies of the other races. Meanwhile, take a look at elves, men, and dwarves. They operate on a system where leadership is passed down through bloodlines. Whether it's Aragorn in Gondor, Thranduil in Mirkwood, or Dane Ironfoot in Erebor, leadership in these societies is typically inherited, not elected. So right off the bat, hobbits seem to have a more democratic approach to governing their people. Now let's get into something that's pretty unique to hobbits, their legal system. Hobbits love a good contract. In fact, their legal system relies heavily on written agreements, especially when it comes to property, inheritance, and trade. Take Bilbo Baggins, for example. He didn't just leave behind his belongings for his relatives to fight over. No, he had a will that laid out exactly what would happen to his property. That's not something you see a lot in Middle-earth. Hobbits take contracts seriously, and they abide by them. It's part of their orderly and predictable society. Compare that to elves, men, and dwarves. Sure, they have laws, but their societies are more informal when it comes to transactions. In places like Gondor or Mirkwood, deals might be struck, but they're not usually set down in legal documents or contracts. A lot of it is based on personal trust or the will of the ruler. It's a more feudal system rather than one based on formal written agreements. One of the most striking things about Hobbit society is its unwavering peacefulness. While the rest of Middle-earth is often embroiled in war and conflict, the Shire stands out as a land where peace is not just a temporary lull between battles, it's a way of life. Hobbit society thrives not on material wealth, but on simple pleasures. Good food, good company, and a life that's centered around community and nature. And that's what makes their society so appealing. So when we think about the hobbits and their society, maybe it's not all that surprising that they live the way they do. The true wealth of the Shire is in its values, and maybe, just maybe, that's something we can all learn from. After all, happiness doesn't always come from having more. Sometimes it's about making the most of what you've got.